What is slavery? For most of us, this word smells like the dust of centuries, a dark page of history humanity has long turned. In its classical definition, slavery is a social system where a human being is the property of another. An object, a commodity. A slave is stripped of basic rights, no freedom of movement or choice, no right to their own labor. Their life belongs entirely to the master. When we hear this word, we envision chains, shackles, the whips of overseers, and exhausted people working under a scorching sun for a crust of bread. From childhood, we are taught that this horror is in the past. Civilization evolved, humanism triumphed. Let's recall the dates of the Great Liberations. Great Britain, 1833, free Parliament passes the Slavery Abolition Act, forever banning the ownership of people across the entire British Empire. France, 1848, the final decree breaking the chains in the colonies. Liberty, equality, and fraternity finally applied to everyone. The Russian Empire, 1861. Alexander II signs the Emancipation Manifesto. Millions of peasants cease to be the property of landowners. The United States of America, 1865. After a bloody civil war, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution is adopted, outlawing slavery forever. Brazil, 1888. The Golden Law. China, 1910. The Qing dynasty officially bans the buying and selling of human beings. Even countries like Saudi Arabia in 1962 and Mauritania in 1981 legally erased this phenomenon from their territories. The history books are closed. Humanity can celebrate its victory. Slavery is officially and universally abolished. But is it really? Allow yourself to doubt for a moment. Did the shackles truly disappear? Or did they simply change their shape, becoming invisible to our eyes? What if the greatest trick the slave owners ever pulled wasn't tightening the chains, but convincing the slaves that they were free? Physical shackles require constant control. They spark anger, riots, and rebellions. Physical slavery ultimately proved to be economically inefficient. But what if you bind the mind, not the hands? What if you make a person put on their own collar every morning, genuinely believing it's their choice? To understand how this great transformation occurred, we must travel far back into the past, into the sands of time, where empires were born. Ancient Egypt, the era of the pharaohs, an endless desert, a scorching sun, and monumental construction projects challenging eternity itself. Picture the scene. The air trembles with heat. You hear the endless striking of stone, the groans of men, and the sharp crack of leather whips. It was here, in the shadow of the rising pyramids, that a conversation took place. A conversation that perhaps changed the course of human history forever. The pharaoh stood on the balcony of his palace. Before him stretched endless rows of slaves, dragging giant stone blocks across the burning sand. But the ruler's face was dark. The great construction was slowing down. People were collapsing from exhaustion right into the sand, unable to take another step. Overseers tore the slaves' backs to the bone with whips, but it didn't help. An exhausted body cannot labor, even under the threat of imminent death. More and more guards were needed. Riots flared up more frequently. Guarding the camps and feeding a massive army of captives was draining the treasury. The pharaoh ordered the oldest and wisest priest of the empire to be brought to him, a man whose eyes had seen many dynasties rise and fall. The old man entered the throne room, leaning on a staff. The pharaoh stepped down, angrily pointing at the window. "Look at them! My empire is rotting! They work too slowly. They steal tools, they break the stones, they die of hunger and the whip faster than we can bring in new ones. If this continues, we won't finish this city in 100 years. Fear doesn't work anymore. What should I do, wise man?" The old man remained silent for a long time. He walked to the window, looked at the tormented crowd below, then shifted his gaze to the pharaoh's golden robes. "Oh, great ruler," the old man said quietly, "your whip breaks their backs, but it also breeds hatred in their hearts. Fear is a poor engine. Put away the whips, remove the heavy iron chains from their feet, and start paying them for their work. Pay them in golden coins. The Pharaoh laughed, but there was fury in his laughter. Pay the slaves? You've lost your mind. I have hundreds of thousands of workers. If I start paying each of them even 1 coin a day, my massive state treasury will be empty in less than a year. The old man squinted slyly. Wait, my lord. You will pay them in gold. But at the same time, you will introduce a system called taxes. Everyone who works will have to return a portion of their earned gold to the treasury simply for the right to walk on your land and drink your water. The Pharaoh pondered this. He began to calculate in his mind. Let's assume, but even if I impose a tax of 50 or even 60%, it still won't be enough. They will have too much gold left. They will start hoarding it, and one day they will simply stop working, and in 3 or 4 years the treasury will run dry anyway. Your plan is a path to the destruction of my empire, the ruler snapped. The old man smiled. His eyes gleamed with a cold light. They will not hoard it, my lord, because you will take the rest of it yourself. But you will not take it by force. You will create a world where they will gladly bring you their last remaining coins themselves. Introduce holidays. Declare days off. People cannot work without rest. But on these days they will want to have fun. Build taverns for them, where they can drink sweet wine. Build public bathhouses. Build massive coliseums and theaters for their entertainment. Order merchants to bring beautiful fabrics, shiny jewelry, delicious food. Create an illusion of a beautiful, rich life for them, and most importantly, announce to them that as of tomorrow, they are no longer slaves. Call them the free citizens of Great Egypt. Tell them their life now depends only on themselves. Whoever works harder earns more. Whoever earns more rests sweeter. The Pharaoh was stunned by the boldness and depth of this idea. A fire of understanding lit in his eyes. And you will see, the old man concluded, how your overseers with their whips will become unnecessary. The people will wake up before dawn on their own. The eye will run to the quarries on their own. They will compete with each other to bring back more stones just to buy a new tunic or wine in the evening. The next day, the Pharaoh's heralds read the decree in the main square. Shackles were removed, whips were burned. The crowd roared with delight. The word slave was officially forbidden. Now everyone was called a worker. Everyone was handed their first golden coin. A few years passed. The Pharaoh stood on that exact same balcony again. But the scene below had changed beyond recognition. No groans, no riots. The work was boiling like never before. People dragged stones with smiles, trying to outpace their neighbors. Labor productivity skyrocketed tenfold. The mortality rate from exhaustion dropped to 0. People took care of their own health so they could work the next day. The former cruel overseers now wore different clothes. They began to be called foremen, managers, and accountants. They no longer beat people. They simply distributed the gold, issued fines for being late, and handed out bonuses to the most obedient. And in the evenings, the free citizens flocked to taverns and theaters, leaving every last drop of their hard-earned gold right there. By morning, their pockets were empty, and they enthusiastically went back to the construction site to earn money for the next weekend. And some, who didn't have enough gold for beautiful things, went to the Pharaoh's scribes and borrowed coins. That is how the loan was born. Now they owed the Pharaoh not only their time, but also the gold they had borrowed, and they worked twice as hard to repay the debt. The Pharaoh looked at this perfect self-regulating society. The treasury was overflowing. The cities were practically building themselves. The old man was right. Physical slavery is for savages. The perfect slave is the one who truly believes he is free, the one who guards his invisible cage. the one who is ready to tear apart anyone who tries to tell him the truth about his situation. A slave who is given the opportunity to choose his master is still a slave. The illusion of choice has become the most secure cage of all. This system turned out to be so perfect that it survived for millennia. It changed names, it changed scenery, but the core remained the same. Eras changed, empires fell, new ones were built. Stones were replaced by machines, and machines were replaced by computers and offices. Golden coins were replaced by paper notes, and eventually by invisible numbers on the screens of plastic cards. But the principle laid down by that ancient wise man continued to work flawlessly. Take it back through taxes, take it back through entertainment, make them desire things they don't need. Make them compete with each other over whose belongings are more expensive and carry more status. Create credit for them so they can get what they desire right now, paying for it with years of their future time. And they will set their own alarms for 6 in the morning. They will ride the crowded public transport themselves. They will fear losing their jobs more than the ancient slave feared the crack of the whip, because the fear of poverty is stronger than pain. The modern whip is the mortgage. The modern shackles are consumer loans. The modern overseer is the human resources manager. We were given weekends so we could recover our strength. We were given vacations so we wouldn't lose our minds from the monotony. But all of this is only so that we remain efficient cogs in a giant machine that generates wealth for the very few. The system has evolved, but the base code remains unchanged. The vast majority of a person's time does not belong to them. Wake up! The parable is over. The time machine brings us back to the present moment. Look around you. Welcome to the year 2026, an era of high technology, artificial intelligence, and boundless, deafening information noise. We can contact any person on the planet in a fraction of a second. We carry devices in our pockets more powerful than last century's computers. But have we become freer? Or have our chains simply become digital, invisible, woven from algorithms and social media feeds? Look at your life. Look at your daily routine. How many hours a day do you actually spend doing what you truly want? You wake up to an alarm. You go to work to pay the bills for an apartment where you basically only sleep. You give up to half of your income to the government in the form of direct and hidden taxes, duties, fees, and insurance. The rest you bring to massive glass temples of consumption, shopping malls. You buy the emotions that you are lacking in your real life. You work 5 days a week just to feel like a human being for 2 days. And so it goes, month after month, year after year. If you stop working for even a couple of months, your free life will collapse like a house of cards. Is freedom really this fragile? We've been convinced that success is the number of things we buy, that status is a car brand. We've been forced to run on a treadmill like hamsters. And while we run faster, competing with each other for likes and credit scores, the real pharaohs of our time are harvesting the crop. Slavery hasn't gone anywhere. It simply became comfortable. It became high-tech. It became your comfort zone. Look in the mirror. Look into the eyes of the person on the other side. Answer yourself honestly just one single question. Are you a slave?